Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a story of sheer willpower, trial, and transformation. We are looking at the life of one of early Islam's most remarkable figures, Zubair ibn al-Awwam. And what's really wild is that his legacy spans the fierce, muddy intensity of early battlefields and the sharp, brilliant calculus of early economic systems.
Now, think about this for a second. He was the first to draw a sword for the truth, and the only man whom the angels imitated on the battlefield of Badr. That is the story of the Prophet's legendary disciple. We're going on a journey that begins in the unforgiving desert heat of Makkah and ends with a legacy that literally helps shape the foundations of an empire.
Part 1. The Boy of Brass.
So to really understand this man, you gotta look at his childhood. He grew up as an orphan in a dusty courtyard, raised by his mother, Safiyyah, who actually happened to be the Prophet's aunt. And Safiyyah? Well, her parenting style was fiercely uncompromising. She would discipline young Zubair hard. When family members tried to step in, warning her she was being way too harsh, she basically fired back with a poem. She wasn't just punishing him out of anger, she was deliberately forging a soul that would never back down from a shadow. I mean, one time as a kid, Zubair got into a fight with a full-grown man and beat him so badly he broke the guy's hand. When people asked Safiyyah what happened, she just proudly asked them, "Did you find him soft like cheese or dates or unyielding as brass?"
Part 2. The First Sword Drawn. That iron discipline absolutely paid off. Zubair became one of the very first 5 people to embrace Islam, and his fearlessness was tested almost immediately. Back when the early Muslims were this tiny, heavily persecuted group, a terrifying rumor spread that the Prophet had been captured or killed. Zubair was barely a teenager at the time, but did he hide? No way. He literally unsheathed his sword and rushed alone through the dark, hostile streets of Makkah, ready to take on the entire city by himself. When he found the Prophet safe, the Prophet was just amazed by his loyalty and blessed both him and his weapon. That moment went down in history as the first sword ever drawn for the cause of Islam.
Part 3. The Prophet's sincere disciple.
Moving into his military prime alongside the Prophet, Zubair's resume as an impossible taskman is just staggering. We're talking about a guy who participated in every single major military expedition. At Badr, he's commanding the right flank. At Uhud, when the ranks broke, he stood his ground as a human shield defending the Prophet. At the trench, he kept volunteering for these incredibly dangerous recon missions. And he carried the physical proof of all this for the rest of his life. Historians note he had sword wounds on his shoulders so deep you could literally fit your fingers right into them.
And that sheer courage earned him some incredible divine favor. On the battlefield, Zubair had a signature look. At the Battle of Badr, he wore this very distinctive yellow turban. It was a day of impossible odds, right? Well, the Prophet pointed out something amazing. The angels sent from the heavens to assist the Muslims were miraculously wearing yellow turbans too, in the exact likeness of Zubair.
Which brings us to this one terrifying, stormy night during the Battle of the Trench. The Muslims are surrounded, freezing, and exhausted. The Prophet asks for a volunteer to cross enemy lines and gather intel on a tribe they suspected of betrayal. He asks 3 times. And every single time, in that freezing wind, only one hand goes up. Zubair's. That was the moment the Prophet declared, "Every prophet has a disciple, and my disciple is Zubair." He earned that ultimate title, Hawari, meaning the sincere, devoted supporter.
Part 4. Scaling the Babylon Fortress.
Fast forward a few years to the expansion of the early Islamic State. The Muslim army is bogged down in Egypt, staring at the massive, impenetrable stone walls of the Babylon fortress. They desperately need a breakthrough. Zubair arrives with reinforcements, takes one look at the walls, and does something straight out of a movie. He commits his soul to Allah, grabs a wooden ladder, and scales this towering fortress entirely alone. Some historical accounts even say he had his sword clamped in his mouth. He reaches the top and lets out a thunderous shout of Allahu Akbar. The Byzantine defenders were so terrified by this bold solo breach that they completely panicked. They thought an entire army was right behind him. They abandoned their posts, allowing Zubair to climb down and open the gates.
Part 5. Pioneer of Islamic Banking.
Okay, now here is the ultimate plot twist in his story. This fierce, terrifying warrior. He was also a brilliant merchant, a true financial pioneer. People trusted Zubair implicitly. They constantly wanted him to hold their wealth for safekeeping as a trust deposit, or wadaya. But here's the catch. With a trust, you can't use the money, and you aren't liable if it gets stolen without negligence. So, Zubair flips the script.
He tells people, I won't take it as a trust, I'm taking it as a loan, a card. By converting these deposits into loans, he guaranteed their money. He was personally liable to pay it back no matter what. But legally, this allowed him to take that massive pool of capital and invest it into lucrative businesses. He basically invented an interest-free deposit banking system.
And the results were just mind-blowing. At the time of his death, he owed depositors around 2.2 million dirhams. But his estate valuation? Over 50 million dirhams. Let that staggering number sink in for a second. 50 million! It completely proved the massive success of his system. He built incredible wealth, but he generated it through ethical, asset-backed investments.
He wasn't just hoarding cash or buying frivolous luxury items. He invested in real, tangible assets that actually benefited the community. He bought massive agricultural tracts in Gaba that produced food. He owned 11 urban rental properties in Medina, plus high-yield estates stretching all the way from Basra to Egypt. He was a master at diversifying real estate and using his wealth to support daily life and commerce rather than just chasing personal prestige.
Part 6. The Final Prostration. We transition now, really poignantly, to the end of his life. After the assassination of Caliph Uthman, the Muslim world fell into the tragic turmoil of its first civil war. At the Battle of the Camel, Zubair initially found himself on the opposing side of Ali ibn Abi Talib. But before the battle fully broke out, they had a conversation. Zubair was reminded of a prophecy from the Prophet, and he immediately realized he was in the wrong. And this is where you see the true measure of the man. The first sword of Islam lowered his weapon. He walked away from the battlefield, choosing peace over shedding Muslim blood. But tragically, while he was resting in a nearby valley called Wadi al-Siba, praying to his Lord, he was assassinated from behind, right in the middle of his prostration.
He died exactly as he lived, in total submission to Allah. Which leaves us with this incredible final thought. How does a man forge a legacy as both the fiercest sword on the battlefield and the most trusted guardian of wealth? Zubair ibn al-Awwam was a master of both worlds, the physical and the practical. He was forged in brass, favored by angels, and will forever be remembered as the sincere disciple. Think about what it takes to build a legacy with that kind of profound duality. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this sparked your curiosity to go out and learn even more.